Sebastian. Thank you for coming onto the Kind Mind series to chat to us today about stress and anxiety. It feels like this topic is something that we can all relate to in some way or have all experienced at some point in our lives, particularly now as we're going through quite a difficult time. So to kickstart, I just want to ask specifically about what stress is, what anxiety is, and are they different things?
Hi, Jess. Thank you for inviting me. I think there's a fine line between stress and anxiety. Both are emotional responses, but stress is typically caused by an external trigger. So the trigger can be short term, and we can talk about something as a work deadline or a fight with a loved one, or it can be a long term, such as poverty, discrimination, or chronic illness. Anxiety, on the other hand, is defined by persistent, excessive worries that don't go away, even in the absence of that stressor.
Okay. And I think it's quite important to note that difference because it does feel that stress and anxiety are used interchangeably a lot. But it's really good to have that clarity. And I would imagine also important to then distinguish that in terms of how you respond to your stress or your anxiety. So how do we know if we are experiencing stress or anxiety? How can we sort of identify that in ourselves?
Well, think of it this way. Stress is mostly external. While you can cause yourself stress through negative self-talk, a pessimistic attitude, or a sense of perfectionism, it is usually triggered by something external. Too
Okay.
many responsibilities or a high stakes work project trigger a stress response.
Yeah.
Now, anxiety, on the other hand, is more internal. It is how you react to those stressors. If you remove those stressors and still feel overwhelmed and distressed, you are likely dealing with anxiety in that moment.
Okay.
Anxiety tends to be an excessive reaction to a given situation. So certain situations can be stressful and would be for anyone, such as dealing with arrangements for the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
Anxiety tends to be this outsized reaction. And if the worry and distress you feel in a given situation is unusual, excessive, or goes well beyond the reactions of other people, it may be rather anxiety than stress in that moment.
Okay.
I think anxiety can cause you to be unable to function. So most stressful situations are difficult to get through, but are ultimately manageable. Anxiety disorders can leave you completely unable to manage normal everyday tasks. So if you are distressed to the point of being unable to work or even having a panic attack, an anxiety disorder might be the underlying issue.
Hmm.
Also, anxiety causes feelings of dread and fear of things that haven't happened or don't generally exist. So, stress is a response to something happening or a pressure you feel. Anxiety can be completely internal and not a reaction to anything that exists in reality. For instance, with an anxiety disorder, you may feel a general sense of apprehension, dread, or worry, even when there is nothing coming up that should cause you to be concerned in that moment.
Yeah. That's really helpful in just understanding it better. And it's interesting that you talk about stress as mostly external and anxiety as mostly internal, because it definitely sort of feels that way if when you're experiencing those two things. And I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying about the ability to function, because I have been told in the past that actually a certain level of stress can be good for you and cause you to function and perform better. Is that right?
Yes, that is quite right. A certain level of stress is actually good for you because it will motivate you to be more efficient and productive and put more energy and effort into what you are doing. When your brain perceives some kind of stress, it will flood your body with chemicals that will make you more alert. So, this generally creates a variety of reactions, such as an increase in your blood pressure and heart rate. Plus, the senses suddenly have a laser like focus, so you can avoid physically stressful situations, such as jumping away from a moving car and be safe. In
Yeah.
addition, there are various health benefits with a little bit of stress, and researchers believe that some stress can actually help to fortify the immune system. For instance, stress can improve how your heart works and protect your body from infection. And in a particular one study, individuals who experienced moderate levels of stress before surgery were actually able to recover faster than individuals who had low or high levels of stress.
Wow, that's not really what you would expect in a way, is it? But it's so good to know that stress isn't all bad, and that the reason we have it in the first place, I guess, is to protect us, and protect us, yeah, from danger. So it seems that stress and anxiety can still affect us in different ways. So I wondered if you could just tell us a bit more about the range of these common symptoms of stress or anxiety that someone might experience.
So some of the symptoms that we associate with stress and anxiety are excessive worrying, this feeling of agitation, restlessness. A lot of times students would disclose feeling tired or fatigued, and this difficulty concentrating. Also, being irritable more than usual, and people tend to notice a tension in their muscles, and they have difficulty falling or staying asleep. All of these things can actually lead to panic attacks and avoidance of social situations and even irrational fears along the way.
Yeah. And some of those symptoms are actually really quite physical things, the tiredness and the achy muscles. And I would imagine that some of those, are quite normal responses to stressors, such as difficulty concentrating. But you've also mentioned things there, like you said, panic attacks, which can be really quite scary and quite an extreme response. So at what point does stress and anxiety and these symptoms then become sort of more abnormal, and when should someone then seek some help?
I think stress and anxiety can become abnormal or unhealthy when they start to affect most areas of your life and your day-to-day functioning. So, for example, for students, they tend to report finding it difficult to concentrate on their studies or their assignments, which we will call stress in this case. They mention they notice their sleep is disrupted as they have trouble falling or staying asleep. The next stage would be they share how difficult they might find social interaction at this stage, as they feel they are not present there, but their mind tends to wander off, worrying about, for example, being behind with their assignments for college, and they tend to become agitated or restless. They might even report being irritable, and their mood tends to change. So to take it even further, these symptoms will build up to triggering a panic attack. I think when we notice that these things happen or they tend to build up, it is quite a good time to start speaking to your GP and seeking professional help, be it therapy, counseling, and even learning some deep breathing techniques.
Yeah, definitely. And anxiety and stress can really feel overwhelming. So as you said, if you're watching this, do seek support if it's affecting your day-to-day functioning. So it feels important to acknowledge here as well that you're not alone if you do feel stressed and anxious, because we do all feel it, and a lot of students are likely to struggle with this. So with that in mind, I wonder if you, as a counsellor, notice particular times in the year when students tend to present with feeling more anxious and more stressed.
Definitely. One of the most obvious times of the year when students feel anxious or stressed is when they return to college. They have taken some time off during summer to disconnect, and when they return, their mind and body remembers the previous academic year. Struggles they might have had, sleepless nights, revision, being back for lectures, labs, possible lack of social interaction. All these can get triggered and they can feel quite overwhelming. And to use an analogy to help you understand the point I'm trying to make would be, try to imagine you are a beginner and you go to the gym, you start building a routine. Your muscles and cells in your body, they have memory. So once you learn a certain movement, your body will remember it. For example, you don't have to tell your feet to step in front of the other when you walk, or tell them to run when you start jogging. Your body has done that so many times that it knows how to do it automatically. Now, I think it is quite similar when we take a break from an environment that is associated with demands, stress, assignments, deadlines, sleep disruption, and anxiety, and your body will trigger feelings associated with that, feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed. That is an understandable response if we look what is behind it, memories of difficult or stressful experiences and circumstances. Now, that is not to say college or university life is all stressful, but it does trigger a lot of the things I previously mentioned.
Yeah, such a good analogy there. And it makes so much sense that returning to university triggers that response and those memories. And I would also assume that exam time can be very stressful for students too, especially if students put a lot of pressure on themselves to perform quite highly.
Yes, exam period is another area where students tend to seem more anxious and stressed. So under pressure to achieve and perform well, students spend nights revising, which affects their previous developed routine and in turns can affect their sleep, their rest,
Yeah.
and social interaction. Quite a few students notice they start avoiding social interaction, which sometimes can lead to feeling anxious in social settings and even can lead to social anxiety.
Yeah. And I do want to come back to that point later, actually, about sort of the avoidance that can make the stress and anxiety feel worse. But first, I want to ask the bigger question of what can we do to manage stress and anxiety better?
There are quite a few things I think we can do to manage and reduce levels of stress and anxiety. First, I would say become aware of what you're feeling. I think we become so disconnected with ourselves throughout life as we spend time studying, looking for work, having a relationship, and we kind of forget about ourselves, our thoughts, and our feelings. And no one really teaches us to pay attention to that. So I think a good start would be to practice mindfulness, this deep breathing body scan technique that helps you connect with yourself and generally tends to improve overall awareness of your body and how you are feeling. Another way of dealing with stress and anxiety would be to kind of stay connected. Make sure you spend time with loved ones, family, peers. Social interaction has a positive effect on our mood and also gives us an opportunity to share our struggles and challenges. Something powerful happens, I think, when you are able to sit down with someone and
Yeah.
have a conversation about sensitive issues and have that acknowledged by them. It
Yeah.
is quite encouraging and it doesn't feel like an isolated experience anymore.
Mm.
Another way of dealing with stress and anxiety might be, physical exercise. You can start by walking and then you can do jogging and even go to the gym. Physical exercise improves our immune system and the capacity of our bodies to deal better with stress and leaves you with a refreshed feeling of yourself. So just I would encourage people to try it.
Yeah.
And also, I think taking time out, relax, make sure you give yourself space to rest and recover, especially during exam time. We are not used to taking time for ourselves, but it can be very beneficial to spend time doing nothing, where you just allow your brain to relax and your body as well.
Yeah. And mindfulness is such a good one, particularly because not only can it, help reduce those really physical feelings of anxiety with the deep breathing, but as you said, it's just really good to get to know yourself, get to know your body and what the signs are for you and how the stress and anxiety sort of manifests. And I think once you can get a really good idea of that, you can start then implementing those stress management techniques like early on. Yeah, so for example, for me, I have noticed over the years that when I'm anxious, I get a really tight chest. And so now I can just pick up on that in seconds and then go, okay, if I'm feeling a bit stressed, I'm going to do, a few minutes of deep breathing, or I'm going to go for a quick walk or listen to some music because I know that that's what works for me. But you mentioned also taking time to rest and taking time for ourselves. And I wonder whether routine is therefore quite important here because I would imagine that we sort of, or it feels like we typically plan our days around the more important, sort of more stressful things that might cause us anxiety because we're worrying about it. But perhaps if we were to flip that on its head and sort of choose one or two things every day that we did every single day that guaranteed time for ourselves to do that resting and recovering. If we sort of put them in our calendar first and then build the rest of our day around those things, I wonder whether that might actually be a really a good preventative tool to stop us from getting too stressed or too anxious, and particularly then being quite maybe proactive in doing that in situations or seasons such as exam time when you know that you're likely to get a bit more stressed or anxious.
I agree with you, Jess. We tend to plan our day around the things that trigger stress or anxiety, and it should be the other way around. When I work with students, this is one thing I tend to tell them: make sure your day works for you, which means you have the ability to choose how your day will look like. And that starts with your mindset. You know, what kind of thoughts do you allow in your mind? Whatever you're thinking about will come to pass. And to be more practical, I will give you my example. I take time every morning while I drink my coffee to gently visualize my day and do some simple mindfulness exercises, breathing in and out and noticing how I'm feeling that day. I also go for short walks as well and notice if there's any anxiety or stress building up throughout the day. And I sit with these feelings and give them a voice. That means I can say to myself, I'm noticing a bit of tension in my shoulders or in my stomach. I feel a bit anxious or worried or stressed about this deadline. That's fine. I just tell myself, be present in this moment and just relax. And I actually give myself permission to relax, even though there are things for me to do. But unless I take this time for myself, I know I won't be able to do it well and actually be able to focus.
Yeah, so good, and really important, I think, for students with their workloads and those demands, just to recognize that. And I'm sure there's something also in starting your day with something that's for your well-being, you know, just making it the first priority. And I know that that's often probably why people choose to maybe exercise first thing, or to journal or meditate when they first wake up, because it feels like you're kind of setting your day up as you mean to go on. I also want to ask if there are any tips on how to manage worry and anxiety, you know, in the moment when you are experiencing it. You know, quick things we can do to rationalize or to calm ourselves down when we find ourselves caught in that excessive worrying, maybe a panic attack, or just intense anxiety about something.
There are a lot of resources and tools we can use to deal with worry and anxiety. One technique I teach students is the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which is a grounding technique. And the purpose of this method is to help you stay grounded in the present moment, as anxiety and worry tend to disconnect you from the here and now and actually make you focus on the future. So what you have to do is quite simple. You focus on 5 things you can see in that moment. It can be your bed, your laptop, paintings on the wall, the window, and so on.
Okay.
4 things you can touch. It can be your clothes, your bed, desk, anything. 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And I know the taste part can be a bit tricky, so you can have some gum or candy with you in that moment. Another way to deal with anxiety and worry would be to do deep breathing exercises for 3 to 5 minutes, as you previously mentioned. You find a comfortable position and you start slowing down your breath and just focus on the air going in and out. Notice your body in that moment, your posture, and you keep your focus on your breath. So your breath tends to become this anchor. And to take it a step further, I actually tell myself while I'm breathing in and out, relax and rest. And that is a positive message to the brain. And once your brain picks that up, it can actually start to tell your body to relax, as there is no threat or danger in that moment for you.
Yeah, I love that little addition. And I have used the 5-4-3-2-1 technique before, and it really is so effective for just stopping your brain being stuck in that worrying cycle, and just remind yourself, okay, what are the facts? What's happening right now? You know, what can I see? And I can also definitely advocate for the positive effect of just deep breathing for a few minutes in a stressful situation. It's so effective. And I think I was always quite suspicious of that, you know, can just breathing really help you so much? But I think there is a difference between breathing normally and taking time to focus on the deep breathing. I mean, do you think you could talk us through it quickly? I think it would probably help us all and anyone watching to just take a couple of deep breaths.
Of course. So when you mentioned the breathing and deep breathing, I will just want to make a short distinction there. Normally we tend to breathe from our chest, so we call that a shallow breath. And when we slow down the breath and we call it deep breathing, actually you breathe from your diaphragm. So that's a slower breath, and definitely for everyone watching, you can try and do it with us. So we'll do it for the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
So just try to find the comfortable position. If you're sitting down, if you're standing up, find a comfortable position and close your eyes if you feel definitely comfortable. And just begin by taking a few deep breaths. So slowly breathe in and slowly breathe out. And just focus on your breath. Notice the air going in, filling your lungs, and then the air going out. And while you continue to take deep breaths, just try to become aware of your body in this moment. Try to become aware of your posture. Try to notice actually how your body feels in this moment. And if your mind tends to wander off, that's fine. Just let your breath be an anchor. So bring back awareness on your breath to kind of stay connected in your body. Just allow your body to relax and rest. Try to notice if there's any tension in any parts of your body. And picture breathing in and out. And as you breathe out, just notice how you're releasing tension or any sensations you might be having that might feel uncomfortable. And try to notice even how your chest tends to rise up as you breathe in and out. Just notice that movement. Just allow yourself to be present in this moment and stay connected with your body. And notice your thoughts and your feelings. And we're just observing them. We don't want to change anything. We just want to be present here with ourselves. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
So nice.
I know I was even becoming a bit more relaxed when
It's
you were
amazing
doing it.
how you just notice how much you're carrying, like tension, and when you really, on the release breaths, when you really can relax the muscles, and yeah, it just is a really effective thing to do. So I hope if anyone was doing that, you found that as effective as I did. And thank you just for talking us through that. So now I'm relaxed, and now we've touched on the things that we should do to improve stress and anxiety, such as that technique. I also wonder if there are some things that we shouldn't do in our response to feeling stressed. Are there any typical behaviors that can actually make things worse?
Definitely. I think what I have found working with students for the past few years is this tendency to avoid situations that trigger stress and anxiety. And it can be something as simple as lectures or labs. But by avoiding that situation constantly, you are practically conditioning your body and telling your body this environment or situation is bad. And your body reacts to that message by triggering anxiety and all symptoms associated with that.
Yeah. I think that avoidance can also be something we engage in probably without realizing as well. And of course, it's natural to not want to do the thing that is making you anxious or stressed. But ultimately, what we're saying is avoidance is one way to really just keep reinforcing the problem and therefore keep exacerbating the stress and anxiety.
Exactly. And what happens next is students find it difficult to seek support and they avoid asking for help until their academic performance might be affected or their social interaction. To be able to deal with stress and anxiety, they just tend to develop negative or unhealthy coping strategies like drinking excessively or taking drugs to just avoid those anxious feelings. These are quick fixes, a way to escape the pain, but don't allow you to deal with it. And they also come with many side effects. So
Yeah.
these activities, therefore, only prolong the recovery process and make it harder for students to ask for support.
Yeah. So from what I understand really is that stress and anxiety, they are inevitable, and we are all going to face situations in our lives when we do experience stress and anxiety, and there are both good and bad ways to respond to it, right? So when we are in stressful situations, it's good for us to then just reflect, take a few minutes and think, okay, what am I doing that's helping me manage this in a healthy way? And just check in, and is there anything I'm doing which, such as avoiding a situation or trying to distract myself using sort of unhealthy behaviors, that's actually contributing further to the stress and anxiety. So just to have that sort of time to check in with yourself.
Yes, becoming aware of your triggers is an important aspect of being able to deal with stress and anxiety. If I know, for example, that exam time triggers stress and anxiety for me, then I can try and plan ahead to make sure I have healthy coping strategies in place.
Yeah.
For example, we can develop these reflective skills through mindfulness. I can practice it daily and I allow myself to become aware of how I'm feeling in the present moment without actually judging myself for feeling that way. What
Yeah.
I try to do is understand my reaction and find ways to support myself. I think too many times we blame ourselves for why we feel certain things, which adds pressure and burdens us. And there are quite a lot of YouTube videos and apps to use that teach mindfulness skills. And the good thing about it is that it only takes 5 to 10 minutes. I would also encourage people to do physical exercise and be active. Something as simple as 15, 20 minutes of walking can actually boost your mood and stimulate the body and the mind in the positive way. And
Yeah.
this is another good way to reflect about yourself and actually the day you've had. Um, Sleep is very important. Getting at least 7 hours of sleep per night seems to give the brain time and space to process things that have happened throughout the day, supports short-term and long-term memory and overall learning. And to be honest, other benefits of sleep include energy restoration, cell regeneration, increasing blood supply to muscles, promoting growth, repair of tissues and bones, and strengthening actually the immune system. So, let me put it this way, enough sleep and especially deep sleep will support you mentally, physically, and emotionally throughout the day. It will actually help you deal better with stress and anxiety, and you will probably feel more confident too because you are better able to process information after a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
If things become overwhelming and you can't seem to handle your stress and anxiety, I would suggest our services available to provide help and support.
Mm.
So, talking to a counselor can be very beneficial as it gives you a space to explore your current challenges and find coping strategies that will support you moving forward. Also, our team offers workshops and webinars that focus on stress management and using different strategies to handle stress, and also webinars on how anxiety affects the body and things we can do to take more care of ourselves.
Yeah, and we also offer Silver Cloud, which I want to mention here because it is an online CBT platform. So you can complete self-help modules in your own space and in your own time, which I know can be preferable for some of our students. So on there we have topics on stress and anxiety and panic. So, if you are listening to this and want to learn more about these things, how they might be affecting you and support yourself, then do go to our website and you'll find all the information on Silver Cloud there. It really is a good way to just, as we're saying, like get to know yourself better and to learn how to cope with the stress or the anxiety. And alongside this, we also have our online support group called Online Connect. And this is another great thing to do, just to come and chat to other students who are likely to be experiencing the same things as you. So it's a great way to be supported and just know that you're not alone. So is there anything else, Sebastian, you'd like to add before we wrap up this episode?
Yes, if there's one thing that I have learned for the past few years, personally and professionally is that we need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to be more supportive of our growth process, and we can do that by becoming more patient and I think more understanding towards ourselves. We can't rush this process of getting better, feeling better, but
Yeah.
we can actually be supportive of ourselves and surround ourselves with people that will encourage us and they will be there for us and help us.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you for coming onto the episode today, and it's been just really great talking about this topic. Even myself, knowing that I'm not alone, we all experience it. And for those watching, remember to check out our web pages for this episode, where there'll be lots of extra resources to look at. And if you have any feedback for us or questions, as ever, do email us at counselling@imperial.ac.uk. So thanks again, Sebastian.